really suck at listening and hearing and engaging people with different or opposing viewpoints, and I think that's a real shame. How can you do that and still see yourself as the hero in that situation? So I'm sorry if that ruins your day. Hi, it occurs to me that I've done a whole bunch of things and I haven't really talked that much about some of my history, so I thought I'd start off with a little story about an experience that I had many years ago. So for those of you who have been following this channel for a while, you'll know that first of all I work in education, and second of all I've worked in several different countries around the world, which is definitely an honour and a privilege. It's luck of being born where I was born, I suppose. And one of the places where I lived was Kuwait, which is a very Muslim country. Now, before living in Kuwait, I'd been living in Sri Lanka, which is again a country with very deeply religious views ingrained into that culture. And so I'd already had a bit of experience in living in a place which is so overtly religious, but of course there is this whole narrative around Muslims and Islam and what that means for people to be living their lives in those sorts of countries. Now, I took all of that baggage with me, that cultural narrative baggage, as I went to Kuwait, and it quite surprised me to learn that a lot of those things that we apparently know about Muslims in general was not that accurate, to be honest. And I found the whole living there thing to be quite eye-opening, really, because the more people I met, the more nuanced I found them to be. Muslims weren't this one hive mind where they hate the West or whatever the narrative of the day currently states. A lot of them would go on holiday to places like, I don't know, Las Vegas, for instance. They had a much more varied view on things like alcohol and eating pork and stuff like that. Not that they did that in Kuwait, I hasten to add, because that was illegal, but they were a little bit more open to conversation perhaps than I thought that they might be, which I thought was really good, and it allowed me to engage in conversations with students and colleagues and other people. I was able to hear what they had to say, I was able to listen, and it did change my views to a certain extent. Now, I'm not saying this because I think I'm particularly unusual or I'm special or anything like that. I mean, if anything, a lot of the views that I went there with were really bad. And I'm quite happy that I managed to educate myself out of that. So that kind of brings me to my channel, because one of the reasons why I started this was, as you may well know, the initial title of this channel was Transgender Education. It was to educate, but specifically educate people that knew me from before. I set this up for my family, for my friends, for my colleagues, a resource where I could direct them to and they could learn a little bit more about my experience without me having to tell the same stories again and again and again. And to people who might not be willing to ask me those questions, but obviously it's become more than that. I'm approaching 500 subscribers, which is wild. That's about 498 more subscribers than I ever thought I'd get. And even though my last video only got 200 views, I'm in a position to say it only got 200 views. I've had some videos that have hit 3,000, which is wild for me. 3,000 people willingly listening to me talk. That's crazy. So it's certainly been a learning process for me as well. And as I've said many times, I've met a lot of really nice, really interesting people who've been willing to share their stories, their experiences, to talk about how my videos have helped them, which again is remarkable, and I'm so grateful to those people. But inevitably I've also been discovered by several less than savoury characters, and I remember the first such batch of comments that I received, and it triggered me to make a video. It didn't trigger me in the way that many of you might think. It just triggered me to action. It made me think and reflect, and I created a video where I talked about my intentions, what I would do with those types of people who would come in with views that are critical of mine. And I don't think my views have changed much since then. I still want to engage with people who don't necessarily agree with who I am. I still want to receive those comments regardless of what type of comments they are, because I like to think of myself as fairly intellectually rigorous, let's say. I know that sounds pretentious as all hell, but I mean it's kind of how I feel. I don't want this to be an echo chamber. I don't want this to be a bubble. And I know that's kind of difficult for a lot of trans folk, because sometimes we need those safe spaces. Sometimes we need a place that we know we can go to without fear of harassment or judgment. And I've made this choice with that in mind. And I apologize to anybody who feels that I have not allowed this space to be as safe as they would like. But at the same time, I don't want to censor people. I don't want to prevent people from speaking their mind. First of all, before I embark along this kind of longish topic of what I think about these people who leave these less than positive comments, I just want to say that I'm fully aware of the absurdity of what I'm doing. It's bizarre, and I'm not talking about making videos, of course. I'm talking about everything. I mean, from a young age, it felt like my brain was gaslighting me for like ever. Like, how could I hold these ideas that I do? How could I have this strange disconnect from my body? How can I feel this way about myself? It did feel wrong. It felt weird. It felt bad. And it took me years to get through that. And so that I think that means that I do get where a lot of you are coming from. It is bizarre. It is absurd. Like, look at me. I'm taking hormones to do what with my body? I can understand how baffling that seems. But here's the thing. I'm not making this up. This isn't some kind of weird fetish or whatever a lot of people accuse this of being. It's real, and it is strange. It's so weird. It's so strange. And there's so few of us trans folk. You might bump into one of us a month, a week, a year, something like that, if at all. And that's those of us who are visible and you can tell who are trans, like myself, for instance. So I can understand why people are a little bit confused by who we are. I mean, for goodness sake, I was just as confused, maybe more so, because I was living this experience. I had to figure all of this out myself, and I had a great deal of motivation to do so, because I needed to learn what it was that was causing me this discomfort and unhappiness, and then what I could possibly do about it. So obviously I spend a lot of time thinking about this and talking about this and worrying about this and investigating this, and that's also why I kind of made this channel, because I enjoy talking about it now. So what do I think about these people? Well, I mean, I know the narrative, and I know how difficult it is to get past that. Again, I had to try to get past that myself. How could I possibly be transgender when being transgender means all of these things that are all bad? It's a difficult one to pass, because I don't feel like I'm a bad person. Quite the opposite. I try to do good as much as I can, but look what culture's saying that I am. It's a very difficult thing for me to come to terms with, because so much of it isn't true, but it's talked about as if it is. That it's self-evident that I am all of those awful things that society claims I am. And that's been quite a challenge to get past. For me, someone who, again, is motivated to get to the bottom of all of this. So it makes perfect sense for me that there are people who don't get past that, who don't get beyond that, who are quite happy to just allow that narrative to become all they need to know about us. because there is no motivation for them to change that point of view. And that's not to patronize them, because I know that sounds a little bit patronizing. It's really hard. It takes hard work to get past that, to see past that. And who's got the time? Who's got the cognitive faculties in any era to do that? I mean, look at the world today. It's exhausting. There's so much information. There's so much news, and all of it bad. We're living lives which are comparatively worse to the preceding generation. Work is harder and less stable. We don't have the energy to dedicate ourselves to unlearning things which may or may not be true. It's really hard. So I have complete sympathy for so many of you, because why would you? Why would you embark on this voyage of discovery, which might also be quite painful? Because, I talk about transphobia quite a lot, and I'm trying my best to make it clear what I mean when I say XYZ is transphobic. I don't want people to come away from that thinking that I'm judging them as bad people, because quite the opposite. I think quite a lot of people who hold those views are like normal, regular, fine people. I don't hate you, but it's hard when you come onto my channel and you tell me that I'm some kind of pervert. So what does that mean for me on my channel? Well, as I said, I've made a conscious decision to allow all forms of discourse on my channel, because I think it's important to engage. Because one of my biggest beefs with the left and other groups that I would nominally agree with is that we really, really, really suck at listening and hearing and engaging people with different or opposing viewpoints. And I think that's a real shame, and it's kind of why we are where we are, and I don't want to contribute to that. So I will try my best to hear and to listen what you have to say, but that works both ways. When you've got people coming into your space and the first thing that they say is whatever, you're delusional, or you're crazy, or you're evil, or whatever, or you're going to hell, it's a difficult conversation starter, but I still try to engage. Sometimes I have had some really nice conversations. Sometimes I have had some really interesting conversations where, even though we've had very different points of view on trans matters, there are a lot of things where I can see some areas where we can agree. But then there are people who just seem to want to make it their purpose to hurt me. And it's really, I find it baffling, because why? What's the point? One of the things that I hold as universally true is that nobody thinks that they're the bad guy. Nobody's out there thinking, I'm going to cause harm to somebody or do some evil in the world today. That's not how people work. Everybody has a justification and a reason for the things that they say and the things that they do and the things that they think. Everybody can see their logic and their points of view and where they're coming from. And sometimes that can be quite difficult for others to see and recognize. But I just don't understand the thought process of going into a space with the primary objective of trying to hurt somebody. It's just so wild. How can you do that and still see yourself as the hero in that situation? It's strange. I don't know. I mean, if there's anybody there in my audience who can tell me that, I would love to know. And by the way, I would prefer it if you didn't reduce such people to caricatures or some kind of dehumanization by calling them monsters, because I don't agree with that. I suspect that there were a few bots entering my channel and starting stuff, but I like to believe that everybody who engages in conversation is a living, breathing human being, because we are. And I don't set out to hurt anybody with my existence and with my conversations here. I try to keep a fairly open mind, and I try to be fairly willing to hear what other people have to say. So I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. I don't want people to hear what I have to say thinking that when I'm communicating with them, I'm doing it from a position of, I don't know, anger or hatred or annoyance or anything like that. Because I don't feel that when I'm commenting. I don't feel hurt either, by the way, by people who set out to do so, because I've heard all of those things before. I mean, a lot of those things that you are accusing me of, I've already accused myself of years ago and worked through it. None of the things that you say can harm me, because I don't see any of those things within myself. So I'm sorry if that ruins your day, internet troll, but it's just true. It's water off a duck's back to me, and it's often so uncreative as well. I mean, come on, step up your games, guys. Come up with some creative ways to abuse me. You know, put it in the chat. It'll be fun to see if you can really go to town with your critiques. But anyway, that's something that's been on my mind for a while. Now I'll pivot to myself giving life updates and comment of the week. Hi, I thought that I'd do my life updates from outside today, because look at the day, it's beautiful. What a beautiful spring day today. And also I could show off my cute little scarf as well whilst I'm at it. So my week. So this has actually been quite a good week for me. I mentioned in my last video that there's something at work that I was very excited about. So we have a LGBTQ film partnership, let's say, and we were able to screen some films in Warsaw and in Krakow. And so for the Warsaw films, we screened them in a cinema, and I was there, and we combined it with a bit of experience sharing as well, discussion, and I was part of that, which I was very, very happy about. And it was, I mean, we had 40 people, so I don't know, can we call it a success? I'm going to call it a success. That's the first time that we, as in our company, were involved in screening something like this in Warsaw. So I think that's incredible. That's really wonderful. And in addition to that, I was also asked to lead on some Q&A webinar interview things with a couple of the directors of this film festival thing. And so I met one director, someone called Ramon Tewaka, who was the director of a film specifically about trans issues, and she was a remarkable person to speak to, and another person called Andre Shen, who's the director of a film which centered on a lesbian attempting to come out to her family, and he was a really, really interesting and very dedicated person as well. So I was part of two very, very, very interesting conversations around the art of movies. It's such a rewarding experience, and I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to do that. It's remarkable, absolutely remarkable. What a week. Other than that, nothing new to report. Work, other than giving me a period of utter joy and happiness, it continues to load bad news after bad news onto me. I still don't know anything about my job situation, as do thousands of other people, and it's horrible. Outside of this film initiative, work has been something of a dystopian hellscape, so that's nice. I don't want to dwell on that too much. So let's skip to my comment of the week. So it's actually kind of funny. Now, just a little bit of context about the way that I record my videos. Now, normally I would record my video that I release on Sunday on around about Tuesday, Wednesday in the week, depending on how I'm feeling, if I'm tired or whatever, if I've got any good ideas, something that I really need to talk about. And so I'd recorded the video, the chunk that you've already seen, around that sort of period. And it wasn't until after I'd recorded it that I noticed somebody entered my comment section who kind of proved my whole point. A gentleman who I will refer to by R. He came in accused, and I'm going to use he because he's got a male name, a very male name in his username. He came in accusing me and another regular commenter of being all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And it's really difficult to have a conversation with people like that, because what he was accusing us of, there was nothing within my content to justify that accusation. So what's he drawing on there? And then once I challenged him, because my first response was pretty sarcastic, and then he, I guess quite rightly, pulled me up on that and accused me of not responding to his points. But I responded with a question of, well, why? What's the point? I mean, I get into conversations with people and I don't mind that sort of critical back and forth. I feel that my position is strong enough to withstand critique and withstand questioning. But it's interesting that this person wasn't able to back up his perspective when I asked a couple of questions. Maybe he'll come back. I hope so. I would like to continue that conversation. I hope I haven't scared him off or anything like that. So wherever you are in the world, I would very much like to continue this conversation. I am open to having that. So if you would like to reach back out and have that discussion, I am more than happy to defend my position. Anyway, that's my comment of the week. And so thank you very much for everyone who has been watching. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, if you would like to subscribe, yes, please do that. If you would like to support me, I have a buy me a coffee. I'll put the information here. And if you support me with a buy me a coffee, I will send you something that I've done. It could be a story, it could be a video that I've not released, something like this, some extra little gift just for you, as if you haven't had enough of me already. I don't know, I mean, you could always tell me no. You could buy me a coffee and tell me leave me alone. I guess that's also an option. Otherwise, have yourselves a wonderful week. I hope that your spring is as beautiful as mine is turning out to be, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.